theyeshiva.net.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Today's class is dedicated by Reb Menachem and Batya Abrams in honor of their kinderlach, their children. Mazel Yeshayahu, Ayala, Rafal Tzemach, and David Gavriel. Thank you, Reishis Yomim v'Shanim Tovis, with a lot of health, happiness, prosperity, nachas, and all the blessings. B'toich Klal Yisrael, thank you. Okay, so we're in the middle of the Maamar of Purim, Tovshin Tesvav, Reishis, Goyim, Amaleik, v'Acharisei Adeyovid. We're page 293 in your copies. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. 5 lines from the top. The line starts Hahishtalshalus Mereish Kol Dargin at Seif Kol Dargin. Okay, so last year was extremely fundamental explanation in the whole concept of what Seder Hishtalshalus is. And we discussed it in the context of what he explains here in the Maamar, the part of davening we call Vayevarech David, which is a series of psukim, a whole series of verses from the Nehemiah, the Levim talking to the Jewish people after they returned from Babylonia back to Eretz Yisrael, and they created a renaissance in Jewish life and existence. And he goes through that whole series of psukim of Atahu Hashem Levadecha, Ata Sisas Hashemayim Shmei Hashemayim V'chal Tzvam Aretz V'chal Asher Elah Yamim V'chal Asher Behem V'ata Mechayes Kulam etc. Atu Hashem Elokim Asher B'charta Ba'avram V'tzesim Merkazdim etc. Neman Lefanecha, and the whole section known V'charis Imay Habris, all the way till the end. Esritfei Mishlachta V'mtzeilis K'may Even B'mayim Azim. That's all verses from Nehemiah chapter 9, Perek Tes. And he explained, in addition, of course, to the literal meaning of the words, you have in these words contained what we call the whole Seder Hishtalshalus. Seder Hishtalshalus in Kabbalah and Chassidus represents the entire order, cosmic order of devolution from the transcendent infinity to immanent materialism. And Ata, who Hashem, is all, as we said, what's called pre-tzimtzum reality. That's why it's levadecha. There's still the complete experience of levadecha. You are levad. There's nothing outside of Ein Sof. Then you have post-tzimtzum. Ata sisas hashamayim shmei hashamayim v'chal tzvam. And you have ha'aretz v'chal asher ala yamim. Right away there's 2 categories. There's shamayim or shmei hashamayim. And then there's aretz. There's what we call planet Earth and everything that's contained in it, which of course has water and has dry land. Most of our planet is water, yamim, oceans, seas, 2/3 approximately. And then the rest is dry land. So on a more general and cosmic and spiritual level, and post-tzimtzum you have what's called hashamayim, shmei hashamayim, which he calls here Tehiru Ilah, Tehiru Tata. The Hamakif, heaven represents the Makif, that which surrounds us in the sense that it's transcendent. And then you have the way the light comes in an integrated way into the consciousness of worlds. But here there's a difference between Alma D'Eskasya and Alma D'Esgalia. Alma D'Eskasya means the concealed world. Alma D'Esgalia means the revealed world. Alma D'Eskasya means, what does concealed mean? It means that the sense of self is submerged in the core, in the source, like fish in water. When you come to the ocean, all you see is what we call the water bed, even though there's a whole universe, but it's all covered over and united by a single bed of water. That's what the Navi says about Mashiach, that Mala ha'aretz deis Hashem kamayim layam mechasam. The earth will be filled with divine consciousness like water covers the sea. Feel the water. Yeah. And in a very physical sense, it's submerged in its source of life in a visible way, which is representing of Alma D'Eskasya, where there is no separation where all of identity is submerged in its source of life. The famous mashal for Rabbi Akiva that you can't separate fish from water. You separate fish from water, they die. Where eretz and dry land, here there is differentiation. Here the ego prevails. The sense of separateness in its own perception can prevail. So that's called Alma the Isgalia. So we have it all the way from Ato Hashem Levadech all the way down to Eretz, earth, which includes all the worlds till our universe and everything that's contained in it, all the way till the lowest state of consciousness where there's absolutely no connection, no visible connection to the source, and still Va'ata Mechaya es Kulam. But your life, Mechaya, vivifies, it animates. The divine energy vibrates through all of existence. As we also learned in Basi Lagani, Va'ata Mechaya es Kulam includes everything all the way Lamata Mata Aden Tachlos. So we explained in the last class how the whole concept of Seder Hishtalshlus is really the appreciation and the understanding of fusion, of how there could be connection. For there to be able to be connection, one must be able to understand how every detail and every aspect of their existence is capable of becoming another manifestation of the infinite light. Because if not, Hashem is one, but that can be divorced from my reality. In other words, He's one, as I said, till you trigger me. I'm spiritual till you get provoked. till you provoke me, God is one. Suddenly when you provoke me, I'm also here. Or the other way around. Either Einoid Mulvada is not so real, or you become not so real. You could disassociate, disconnect. You become an inauthentic person in one way or another. And we understand why. It's because the standard is oneness. I'm not that way, so either I don't take that seriously or I don't take me seriously. One, you get rid of God, and the other one, you get rid of yourself. And they're both problematic. Because getting rid of the source it's also a form of getting rid of yourself. It's detaching from who we are. Getting rid of ourselves is detaching from who we're supposed to be. Right? If I'm supposed to be just a fictional character in the novel, so there could have been a book about existence. It didn't have to be existence. So the idea here is that Seder Ishtalshelus is really the map. It's the manual of fusion. Because Seder Ishtalshelus is the way Atzmos, Ato, manifests itself in endless gradations and states of consciousness, all the way to the lowest creature. When I say lowest, it means consciously most remote from the source, even though it's not remote. Because Atu Hashem Levadecha, so it's not remote. That's why you start off Atu Hashem Levadecha, it's always Levadecha. But then there's different states of perception based on how much energy trickles down and how it's filtered through all the kalim, through all the vessels and prisms and filters and channels until it allows for the eye to be the eye. And here we have the fusion ultimately of bringing it all together. I mean, that was our main point. We spoke about marriage, how it works. So right now, right after Ata Mechaya Es Kulam comes the next step. And that's Avram Avinu comes into the picture. Why we start talking about Avram Avinu? Not stam like another good thing, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this. You also, you liked Avram Avinu. Thank you. It's almost like you're eulogizing Hashem. You did this, and you did this also. It's actually essential to the whole process. You have a whole Seder Ishtalshlus. Who is the person who begins in a very systematic and revolutionary way, both systematic and revolutionary, to bring it all together? So that's what he continues. That's Avram Avinu's role. Avram Avinu was the person who began declaring Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem Kel Olam. The pasuk says in Vayera, right? He planted an eshel, an orchard, or a hotel. There's two different interpretations in Rashi, Rav and Shmuel, whether it was a hotel or it was an orchard. And Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem Kel Olam. He called out in the name of Hashem Kel Olam. So the Alter Rebbe says in one of the Maamar L'Kut Torah Kisav, he should have said Kel Ha'olam, Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem Kel Ha'olam. In grammar, you say he called out. he declared God, the God of the world. Keil Olam means God, the world. Vayikra Shem b'Shem Hashem Keil ha'olam. So the Alter Rebbe explains, Vayikra Shem b'Shem Hashem Keil Olam, his chiddush was that Keil and Olam is one. Or as we put it here, Atu Hashem levadecha. In other words, Olam is a manifestation, an embodiment of infinite light. There's no real separateness. Keil is Olam. Olam is Keil. It's complete fusion. Even on a very basic level, Avraham Avinu is the one who starts introducing the idea that there's a oneness that pervades everything. Before that, in the paganism, so many different gods, which really means everybody's competing with each other. The god of the wind, and the god of fire, and the god of the earth, and the god of the water, and the god of the fish, and the god of the storms, the god of the rain, the god of the sun, the god of the moon, the god of this star of galaxy. A lot of gods with a lot of fights, a lot of politics, and the sacrifices somehow get you on the right side of the right God at the right time. And Avraham Avinu, he's the one who introduces really the genesis of not just spirituality, but also of science. That there's a oneness, there's laws of nature that govern a system, and the operating system includes the entire planet. Somehow everyone is communicating with everybody else. We take it for granted today, but it's not. This is the basic manifestation of Achdus, that everyone is somehow in communication with everything. And if one Nekuda was divorced from it, it would affect the whole system. You call the ecosystem, whatever the systems are, but there's systems.
String theory.
String theory. So that's what he continues now. להמשיך בכוסף Atu hu Hashem Elokim asher b'charta ba'avra. Shezui ha'izbaininus b'zeh. This is the hizbaininus, the meditation. Shekol seder ha'ishtalshlus and hizbar lifnei zeh tachlis inyana yu abchira ba'avra. The whole seder ha'ishtalshlus, the ultimate purpose was the choice in Avram. Echad ha'ya Avram. The pasuk says in Yecheskel, Avram was one person. But that one person impacted the world. Echad ha'ya Avram was one person. A person shouldn't look at themselves and say, I'm one person. Well, what do I have? The whole Seder Ishtalshlus has to do with me. Hey, mensch. Thank God Avraham Avinu didn't say that. Nobody told me you're just one guy. Go to sleep. Go. Terach had this business of selling all those statues. Right? So they say that he left, the Medrash says that he left one day Avraham Avinu and he went and Avraham Avinu smashed them all. And when Terach came home, he said, what happened? He said, this one got into a fight with this one. Yeah. Last one was standing with a hammer. Yeah, the whole Maisa with him. What did Terach answer him? So I once heard from Rabbi Beryl Wine. He said that Terach's answer to Avraham Avinu was, Avraham Avinu, wait till you have to start paying tuition, and you'll have to pay a mortgage, and you'll have to marry off kids, and you'll see. It's called business. Somebody got to pay the bills in this house. You're a little 10-year-old idealistic kid. Somebody has to pay. Somebody has to buy the food for Shabbos, Avraham Avinu, okay? Baruch Yitzchak. Just go to sleep and get a job and make a good living and give us nachas. Next. Boom. But Avraham Avinu didn't live like that. Echad haya Avram. He had the courage to be one. To be true to himself, to be true to Emes. Echad haya Avram. So the whole Seder Ishtalshlus says the purpose is Atu Hashem Elokim asher b'charta b'Avram. It's not a new thing. It's a hemshech. The whole Seder Ishtalshlus, like we said, when a person fuses in their own life all their parts, that is what brings back Seder Ishtalshlus to its own source. The B'chira zu hoyse ba'avram koydem shenitoysef lo yosef. This is even before he got the hay. That's why we say asher b'charta ba'avram. Initially his name was Avram, right? Before he had a hay. Shekvar oz he kid his boyre v'amet b'chol hanisyonos. Already then he recognized his Creator and withstood all the trials that he endured. Chaydei avidosi zu nasis hayitziyah hayitzeise me'ur kazdim. Shu inyan hayitziyah mikol hagbalos mikol halemes v'estedem de lo mazeh de seder ishtalshlus. Already then, as Avram, Asher Bacharta Ba'Avram, you chose Avram Vayitseisai, you extricated him, you took him out, from Ur Kasdim. What does that mean? Through this avodah, he was liberated, he was emancipated from all the limitations and from all the concealments and blockages of L'umaza. L'umaza means of all the counter forces that eclipse holiness, and even of Seder Hishtalshalos, which can get you stuck in its grip. Haitzesa, you took him out, Me'ur Kasdim. And then there's V'samta Shmai Avraham. You made his name, I transformed his name to Avraham. B'toisvis, hey, with an extra hey, as the pasuk says, Av hamoin Goyim nesaticha. Hashem says, before this time, you're called Avram. He's adding the letter Avraham to represent, as the pasuk says, Av hamoin Goyim nesaticha. I've created you to become a father for a multitudes of nations. Avram is an Av, you're a father of Ram. Avraham is, as he puts it, Av Hamoin Goyim, the father of multitudes of nations. In other words, that your role is not just to live with integrity yourself or in your little shtibel, but to begin the birudim, to begin the process of healing all the nations, which are represented by 7 nations. That's why the next step is, the next pasuk is, you made a covenant with him to give his children the land of Canaan. It's not stam a promise, I'm going to give you real estate. It's a whole idea that ultimately all the nations of Canaan, which are represent, as we learned before, the 7 midas, and represents, of course, also physically, the nations that governed Eretz Canaan, ultimately your job is lifal inyan abirudim, to start fixing and healing and repairing the entire world, all of the nations, all of humanity, all of civilizations. That's what Hashem told Avram Avinu right in the beginning, that all the families of earth will be blessed by you. Mamshich b'kasav, he continues, V'atakim es dvarecha kitzadik ata. You have established, or you fulfilled your words because you're a tzaddik. She'inyin zenegei loifen abidur. So we asked before, that's how he started. What do you mean you're a tzaddik? V'atakim, you fulfilled your words because you're a tzaddik? It looks like it's some unique virtue for somebody to make a promise, make a covenant, and then when they do it, they say, oh, you're a tzaddik. Kitzad, without explanation. If you're anything less than a tzaddik, of course you shouldn't take it seriously. But since you're a tzaddik, so Baruch Hashem, God is a tzaddik, so therefore he doesn't back down on his covenant. So he says it's a whole different vart. Of course you have to fulfill your promise. The diuk here is vatakim azvelach. She'inyan zeh negei la'ofen habirur. Dehine inyan habirur yachali is boifen she'yizbata legamri adei oivet. The way birur could happen, the way you fix something, the way you elevate kedusha sometimes is by completely destroying the klippa. Adei oivet, like it says by Amaleik, acharisi adei oivet, it gets lost, gone. That's one way. One way of birurim is obliterating the opposite force, completely obliterate. And in a person's life, what it also means is you try to detach or get rid of or amputate or obliterate that which is darkness. On this he says, Shekivan shetzadik ata, v'inyanei shel tzadik hu kamei shekasav imru tzadik ki tov. Definition of a tzadik Yeshaya is, tzadik ki tov, tzadik is good, hinei teva ha-tov lahetiv. The nature of good is to bestow goodness. Lahatzil v'lahalis is called netzutzas hakdusha, to save, to rescue, and elevate all the sparks of holiness. Shezel winyan v'atokem es dvaracha. Lahakim v'lahalis is called netzutzas hakdusha shenimtzoim below mazah. Not to bid farewell and to dismiss, but to lift up, to raise, lahakim, to raise, and elevate all of the sparks of kedusha that are in Lu'umaza, that are in the opposite side of holiness. The covenant you made with Avram to give him all these 7 nations, the land of Canaan, is vatakem es dvarecha. You wanted your words, the Dvar Hashem, to be raised lahakim ulahalas es nitzutzes hakdusha shebechol shiva amama, to lift up the sparks of kedusha that exist in all over the 7 nations. Umitzad haknitzes bris anal yesh bekoichem shel Yisrael levared haberurim delom hazeh. And because of this, every soul has the capacity not only to amputate or dismiss or get rid of, obliterate, but to be mevarer, to refine and identify the sparks of the holiness. In Lu'umazah, this is called the birurim, to create boirer, to sift out and bring out the goodness. Al yidei ha'avei the pnimis, the nefesh ruach neshama shebenefesh alikis, be'emtzo seichel enushi va'abahami shebenefesh abahamis va'ativis. This is the summation of the whole discussion. Through the avei the pnimis of nefesh ruach neshama of the divine soul, through the medium of the human mind, the human brain, and the animal brain of the animal and natural soul, you don't kill the animal soul, you don't dismiss it, vatakim. You lift it up, you raise it, you elevate it. The point is as follows. We asked a question in the beginning of this section that we learned last year. It's basic human decency and it's a basic moral code in all civilization that when a person signs a contract or makes a promise and makes especially a covenant, a bris, which is not just a contract, it's like a full-fledged, very serious promise, covenant between nations, between peoples, you fulfill it. That's like the basic, without that there's no civilization, if promises and commitments and loans don't have to be paid back and agreements have no meaning. I mean, you have what Hamas looks like. I mean, all these types of cultures that, would love to destroy the planet. Yimach Shemam. But everybody understands, it's like the basic fabric of civilization is that there is, the Asayas HaDibros, like Sirtzach, like Sinov, like Signov. You don't testify falsely. I mean, it's the basic. Without that, there's no safety even for one day. We swallow each other alive. It's a sharks killing each other, a real jungle. There's no safety, so there's no structure. So it's a chiddush to say, you didn't, I lent you $10,000, you paid me back, but that's tzaddik. Such good tzaddik, okay, you're a mensch. A tzaddik is something special, right? A tzaddik, very righteous person. And here we say about Hashem, vatakem es dvarecha, and instead of just saying, thank you, ki tzaddikat. So the Rebbe says, vatakem es dvarecha means something much deeper. It's not vatakem es dvarecha that you fulfilled the promise. You made a promise, you fulfilled it. Why not? Why shouldn't you? Well, you're a liar. Chas v'shalom. Why shouldn't you? You don't have to be a tzaddik for that. And you don't even need an explanation. Key. It's like almost like, really, you shouldn't have. But since you're a tzaddik, it's like, really, what do I don't owe you anything. I borrowed. Somebody once told me there was a yid and somebody owed him money. And he had these little booklets, before the phones, you had a little book and you wrote down everything. Some people still have it, your little diary book where you put in all your cheshbonos. So he goes over to him in shul and he says, it's time to pay back. You owe me money. So he says, I don't know you. I don't know who you are. He says, what gun of you, Goslin? I lent you money. Give it back to me. He says, when did I borrow money from you? He gives him the date. So he takes out his little book, his diary, and starts checking. He looks. He says, yeah, it's true. I borrowed money. I told you. Now don't be a Rosh Marusha. Give me back the money. He says, listen, if you calm down is good. I'm going to erase you from the book. If you behave good, if not, I erase you. That's it. Well, it never happened. There was no loan. See, you have to be a tzaddik. So this is the whole hesbid, the whole explanation that is defining a deeper aspect in the whole concept of a charesim mehebris. When you're dealing with the Nefesh HaBahamis, when you're dealing with L'Umazah, there's sometimes what seems like a much easier process. And the easier process is not Vatakim Estvarech. And here it's a hafla de kavod. What's Vatakim? He could have said, V'kiyamta Estvarecha. You fulfilled your words. Milesa Estvarecha. Those are the Hebrew words for doing what you said. The word Vatakim, as I said last time, comes from the word lakum, to stand up. Vatakim Estvarecha, he says, in everything in the world is Dvarecha, is Dvar Hashem. The nitzutz of Kedusha, that's the Dvar Hashem. One way of dealing with L'Umazah is push it away. Let it go. Either there's a nitzutz inside, tough luck. In the laws of kashrus, there's a concept called Chticha Nasis Nevela. Chticha Nasis Nevela means that the piece of kosher, previous kosher, itself becomes a nevela. So now you need 60 against the whole piece. An example for that would be, let's say milk, right, falls in to a pot of cholent. A whole pot of cholent. So obviously if you see the milk, you have to take it out. But the question is the transferring of the taste. So what's we call bittul b'shishim, right? If there's a ratio of 1 to 60, so then, in other words, the ratio of the milk to the meat is 1 to 60. So then we say that the taste is bottled. It's nullified, it's dissolved. So you need 60 against the drop of milk. Yeah. What happens if the milk falls into a piece of meat and there's no 60? Right? So everybody understands now the problem is the whole piece of meat. Chticha, the whole chticha becomes a nevela. Now if that piece of meat falls into meat, you need 60, not only by the milk, for the milk. You need 60 legabe the whole meat because it became basa b'chalav. In kashrus it's called chtich. The kosher chtich itself became the nevela. So the Rebbe Rashab and Amayim v'ayigdol anodim, he says a vart that you could say that sometimes the clip is so bad that chticha nasas nevela. Even the nitzotz, even the holy spark becomes part of the nevela. So just get rid of the whole thing. That's the chiddush vatakim es dvarecha. That the bitter could be in a way that you lifted up your dvar Hashem. You're ready to vatakim es dvarecha ki tzadikata. This is the midah of a tzadik. Tzadik is midah sayisoid. It's toiv. Imru tzadiki toiv. So mitzateva toiv laheitiv, you don't want to let go any spark. You don't want to let it go. So therefore, vatakim es dvarecha. You lifted up your words, the dvar Hashem that is in all of the 7 nations. You don't want it to get lost. Vatakim es dvarecha. You gave the covenant to Avram Avinu that he should be able to transform the 7 nations, not just conquer and defeat and dismiss it. What does this mean? What does this mean? Everything is reflected in a person's life. What does this mean in a person's life? We have so many different parts inside of us. Sometimes the natural tendency is to do away with it. If you could just do away with it. In fact, it's a natural pattern of a person. We call it repression or suppression. Avoidance. Very good. Avoidance. Yeah. In other words, you're my enemy. And it's the enemy inside. So I disengage from you, right? That's what Arik Sharon tried to do with Gaza. He called it hitnatkut. You know what hitnatkut means? Disengagement. He didn't call it the expulsion of 10,000 Jews and creating Hamastan. He called it disengagement. I disengage. It's very healthy. We create boundaries, right? But we know what that looks like. You know what disengagement looks like, right? You come 20 years later, you see what it looks like. And the reason is because you can disengage if there's respect. If there's a boundary and you're on your side, shutfin shiratzu lasas mechitza, and I'm on my side, it's very nice. Like you do with your tenant. If you have a tenant, your one floor is another floor, it works perfectly. At least if you live in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. But when you're disengaging with someone who wants to eat you up alive, good luck. Doesn't work that way. It's like cancer. Person is going to say, the cancer is in this part of the body, but I disengaged from it. You stay there, I stay here. Cancer wants you dead. Doesn't want you should have I'm laughing. It's not so funny. Doesn't want you should have your peace and I have my peace. It's either me or either you. Either you rule or I rule. This is the danger whenever we disengage, whenever we avoid, whenever we repress or suppress. What happens is, maybe for a few years I have it under control. But essentially, the problem has not gone away. With people as well, in our own lives, in a more benign way, the concept of disengagement from the L'umaza, make believe it's not there, or don't listen to it. So sometimes people think that's the path of holiness. No resistance. I don't really have the problem. It's not a big deal. Don't take it so seriously. Or even better, why am I so stupid to have this emotion? I probably don't even have the emotion. What am I really doing? I don't want to acknowledge that this is part of my struggle. I don't want to acknowledge I'm a baby, I'm petty. Probably one of the unhealthiest things that we do to ourselves is when we have emotions that are really, really, let's call them baby-like, really baby-like, you know. It's a past for 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. It's very hard for us to accept that this is what I'm feeling. So I'm not really feeling it. Or I'll convince myself I'm not feeling it. The only problem is we don't realize that there is a 2-year-old. There is a real 2-year-old there. And the worst thing, the stupidest thing you could say to a 2-year-old is, cry baby, cry baby, cry baby. Stupid 2-year-old. Now, what happens if you say that to a 2-year-old? He will remain 2 years old even when he's 90. It's been done. Because the 2-year-old needs safety, needs attachment. He needs to grow up. If you're delegitimizing what he's feeling, what are you telling him? You're telling him you don't exist. So for the rest of his life, he's still looking for existence. Now, what he may become a people's pleaser. And that is completely be inauthentic and shut down. Or he may become very, very angry. He may become very, very disassociated. I need to embrace the 2-year-old. Say, of course, attachment. And now those parts can grow up. So with each and every single one of us, if I go to these parts and I just avoid them, dismiss them, take a hammer and crush them and smash them and say, you shouldn't be feeling that way. Very nice. I don't know of ever a person transforming their feeling by somebody screaming, you shouldn't be feeling that way. Try it out. Tell me how well it works. At best, you repress it, usually with a lot of anger. Interesting, even people who disassociate, usually anger they don't get rid of. They're very angry people. So one thing you could say, Pashat psychologically, it doesn't work. What we resist persists. That's how it is. Somebody sent, it's a fact. I think it's a fact. Somebody sent me a line yesterday.
Resistance is good. It's the only way to reveal the life.
Somebody sent me a line. What you fear when you're still is what's driving your life when you're not. What you fear when you're still is what's driving your life when you're not. Think about that. Another line. You're being presented with 2 choices, evolve or repeat. Somebody sends me these lines. Evolve or repeat. In other words, these are choices that a person has to make. Either I'm going to repeat the same pattern or I'm actually going to learn from it. I'm going to evolve. Very often in families, we just repeat. Or we're going to say, you know what? I'm going to do this differently. It's hard to do it differently because repetition, there's a comfort zone. You go back to the same pattern. To do it differently will create, as you say, resistance. But it allows me to evolve. It allows a new identity to emerge. Resisting what I meant, what we resist persists. What I meant was not resist in a way that I'm confident. Resisting means I'm not ready to face it. I'm not ready to look at it. I can't acknowledge it. I can't deal with it. So I make believe it doesn't exist, or I make believe that I convinced my emotion out of feeling the emotion. It's hard for a person to say I'm jealous. It's hard for a person to say I'm just anxious. It's hard for a person to say, I have a lot of anger in me. I have so much fear, I have so much guilt. It's hard for people, especially men and also women. Sapasnisht. This is what I should talk about. Parshas Kisisa, come on. Say a word to the Parsha. What should I talk about me? It's also egotistical.
You're not talking about resistance, you're talking about avoidance.
Avoidance.
When you avoid it,
Yeah.
that I understand.
Yeah.
But when you resist, it actually doesn't persist.
So
It's actually
resist facing it. Resist facing it.
you avoid it.
Yeah, avoiding it. Yeah. So therefore, and we understand that sometimes it can work for a while. It works. You know, I'm functional. The price of doing business. I'm functional, but internally, there's something eating up. There's something not. It breaks down the system sooner or later. The price of doing business as usual. Huh? You say it never works. Okay. For 40 years, it could look like it works. From his experience, he says it never works. It never really works. But a person that's a chayin, a person deceives themselves that it works. This is what he says. The whole Seder Ishtalshalos was all for Atu Hashem Elokim Asher Bacharta Ba'avram. For Avram Avinu, this is a hamshich to what we spoke. The whole Seder Ishtalshalos was for Avram, and then Avram, Asher Bacharta Ba'avram Vaytzeisi Mirakasim, to be able to go out of Seder Ishtalshalos. Umatzasa Es Levavei Neman Lefanacha. You found his heart, Levavoi Neman. V'samta Shmei Avram. It's not just for himself. It's creating a new consciousness in the world. Av hamoin Goyim nesatich. And how is that expressed? You gave him the 7 midas, the 7 nations, the 7 midas of the Nefesh HaBahamis. Lasis Lazare. Lasis Lazare means that it should be transformed into Eretz Yisrael. Vatokem es dvarecha ki tzadikata. The system could have been just obliteration. He said, no. You have to raise up. You have to be making the Devar Hashem in every nivra, including in Canaan, Chiti, Amaleik, Pizi, we will see. Ki tzaddik, because the midah of tzaddik is teva, toiv, lehetiv, not to let any nitzutz perish and die and get lost. In each midah of the Nefesh HaBahamis, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, it's all nitzutzes. It's full of divine holy sparks. To put it again in simple words, every part of you, as petty as it is, has valuable information. Every part of you, every instinct, every emotion has valuable information. A piece of your DNA is there. It has very valuable stuff inside of it. There's sparks inside of it. By just getting angry and saying how bad it is, what are you doing? You're not just rejecting it, you're rejecting the Dvar Hashem that's giving it chiyus. What that means is, every emotion is getting life from something. And ultimately, the life it's getting is from Va'ata Mechayes Kulam. Va'ata is Aleph, Taf, all the letters from Aleph to Taf. So all of it is getting chayes from something. Yeah, it may be distorted. It's giving you a headache. It's making me self-conscious. It's making me guilty, shameful, fearful, anxious, overwhelmed. I get it. Because the Dvar Hashem has been distorted and filtered and eclipsed with maybe 100 blockages of klippah. But there's a word of God there. Vatokem es dvarecha. Can you lift? You have to lift up the Dvar Hashem. You have to have compassion on the Dvar Hashem. What does this mean? Can you have compassion on all your emotions? Can you make space for them? People are afraid that if you make space for all your emotions, you're going to become a gangster. You're not going to become a gangster. You're going to become a mensch. I'm afraid that if I acknowledge everything, either I'm going to become a crybaby, right? I'm going to become a wreck. I'm a shugana. Right? I'm going to become overwhelmed. I'm going to become a ganav. You don't have to worry. On the contrary, you'll get ois ganav. You'll be able to slowly heal and transform. Maybe not in one day, but that vatokem es dvarecha. There's a Dvar Hashem there that's waiting to be raised, to be uplifted. It's not talking about Hashem fulfilling His promise. It's talking about the ability that the Nefesh HaLekis should elevate the Nefesh HaBahamis. Vatokem es dvarecha. The Nefesh HaBahamis is also Dvar Hashem. to use the language of neuroscience, that my amygdala developed a certain way because it was actually following a divine code. Yes, it did not know much. It's an amygdala, just trying to keep me safe, but it was following a divine code. It developed qualities, it developed instincts, habits, patterns, way of thinking that are maybe wreaking havoc in my life now. But the more I denigrate them, the more I tell them how stupid they are, the more they persist in remaining stupid. Because how did they become stupid, quote unquote, initially? They were trying to protect themselves. So now as a 50-year-old, I'm screaming at them, you're still stupid. What are they going to do? They're going to continue to protect themselves. What's the first thing you do to protect yourself? You put on another bulletproof vest. So you put on a bulletproof vest when you're 3. Now when you're 50, you put on another bulletproof vest. And this time it's even a better one. Because you're already mature, you know how to really put on a good vest. You understand? Why? Because I re-engaged in the same process that caused him or her to become so defensive, that caused him or her to disconnect. So I'm going to continue to shame it and say, you're ridiculous, you're absurd, thank you. But this is humility, because I have to be able to acknowledge that this part is 3 years old. Yeah?
So, yeah. It's in programmers now, that when somebody writes a code, what's the best thing to do for it? You do code review.
Yeah. So in the world of computers, code review, right? This virus is all over this computer. So I could throw out the whole computer. I could throw out the code. I could throw out the software. I could throw out everything. Because something is not working. People who bought this program are reporting some disaster. The only problem is I put 50 years into this program. So code review means actually can you identify, you know what, wow, that exclamation point was put after the question mark. It should have been before the question mark. There should have been 3 hyphens instead of 1 hyphen. Now, it's a funny metaphor, but that's exactly what Vatakim es Dvarecha means. The Dvar Hashem has been distorted a little bit. The code in the program has been distorted. The message itself can be very, very pure, but the way I'm processing the message. The amygdala was trying to help you survive. You're trying to survive. You're trying to be you're actually doing a mitzvah. V'chai behem v'lo sheyamos behem. You're trying to live. And for me, this is how I live. I have to disassociate. I have to live in fear. I have to live in guilt. I have to live in shame. I have to be detached. I have to be aggressive. I have to fight. I have to flight. I have to freeze. I have to fawn. I have to lie. I have to deceive. I'm not allowed to feel. I feel too much. I get overwhelmed. This is my brain doing the mitzvah v'chai bahem. Pikuach nefesh doiche kol ha'torah kula. For me, this was pikuach nefesh. Can you appreciate the Dvar Hashem there? Now, vatokim es dvarecha. Now bring it up. Bring it up. This is how we elevate the animal soul. We don't cut it down. We don't destroy it. We don't break it. We don't crush it. We elevate it. This doesn't mean that patterns that are unhealthy become healthy. People are afraid when you talk about this, you're encouraging immorality. It's the opposite. This is what allows people to grow. It is what allows people to heal. Ki tzadikata. This is what the real tzaddik does. The real tzaddik wants to rescue all the nitzutzes, not destroy them, throw out the baby with the bathwater. Yeah, the bathwater is very dirty, so you could throw out the baby. We don't have dirty water in our house. Sorry, but there's a baby in the water. That's the expression, right? That baby is me. There's a lot of dirty water. I know that. The water is very, very murky, and at this point it's smelly. And people are telling me it smells. But there's a baby in the water. Can you give that baby what it needs? Because that baby is a very, very precious baby. Yes, the baby at angemacht, the baby has had many. The baby has a lot of stuff around it that have to be, dealt with. But there's a little pure baby there. Vatokim es dvarecha ki tzadikah. This is the approach of the tzaddik. Imru tzaddik ki toiv, teva hatoiv laheitiv. Not to throw away the nitzutzes, but to elevate the nitzutzes. Verstehst du, Tzvi? This is scary.
if you find out the code is no good, you might not fix it. You're like, okay, I lost my...
Then we start having choices. When I could review the code and say, So I'm not sick at my core. I'm not crazy at my core. I'm not insane at my core. The B is supposed to be after the A. It ended up before the A. Wow. So now I can, so tomorrow I can evolve. Instead of repeat, I evolve. If not, I just repeat. I repeat. You'll forgive me, there's people, we could live 90 years and not change a thing. There was once in a particular yeshiva, there was somebody there, worked there, he was a smart man. So he once told me, I was a bacher. He said, I used to be a subscriber to Time magazine, he tells me. He said, I stopped. I said, why'd you stop? He said, because I realized every week they write the same thing in different words. I already read it once. They just changed the configurations. Sometimes in life it's that way. I'm saying the same thing in different words. I'm doing the same things just with a different pattern. I could live 90 years and not change a bit. Still responding to my wife the same way, my kids the same way, myself the same way, everything that's just repeat. Will I ever evolve? Sorry, no time for that. I'm busy surviving. How can I even evolve?
The agenda never changes.
Yeah. These are my patterns, and literally, I just keep on doing it in different ways, different methods, different situations. But there's no surprises. Some of you heard of Yogi Berra. You heard of Yogi Berra. So Yogi Berra, they say, his wife once asked him, where should I bury you? I'm buying a plot. Where should I bury you? You were born in Missouri. You live in New Jersey, but you play for the New York Yankees. So where should I bury you? New York, New Jersey, or Missouri? So he looks at his wife and he says, surprise me. So that's what he's saying here. Yeah, Chassidus says, can you surprise yourself? Can I actually surprise myself? Or do I always have to repeat? The selbe drasha, the selbe zach, the same. And I'm talking here repeat in a very deep place. The brain just responding the same thing over and over. But if I have the courage to be able to go in, as you say, to the code review, so now I can make a choice. Because essentially there's a Dvar Hashem that is invigorating everything, even if it's been distorted and manipulated. And you have to do this with caution. And it doesn't give an excuse for a person to behave in an immoral way. And even before it's transformed, the first process, there's a skafia and a tzapcha. The first process is to identify the distortion. And then choose, am I going to live by that or not live by that? And then ultimately I can begin to bring light there and transform it. This is the whole avodah, that's what he's saying, of nefesh ruach neshama of the nefesh alikis, which communicates with nefesh ruach neshama of the nefesh abahamas. So this is how he summed it up. Nefesh ruach neshama of nefesh alikis, neshama is awareness. Ruach is emotions. Nefesh is execution, actualization. The brain, the heart, the liver. In Nefesh Elikis, it's divinity. In Nefesh Abahamis, it's animal survival. But the Nefesh Ruach Neshama of the Nefesh Elikis is enclosed in the Nefesh Ruach Neshama of the Nefesh Abahamis. It's not two separate things. And we communicate. One begins to communicate. And he says, how do they communicate? That's what he finished. When the Nefesh Abahamis is in a state of chaos, I can't communicate with it. It's just trying to survive. That's why he says, you have to reach out to the Seichel Anushi, the Seichel Bahami. As we said in the other shir, when the Nefesh Abahamis is in a state of absolute danger, feeling absolute danger, there's no way I could communicate with it.
That's why you need to pause and breathe.
Always pause and breathe.
Because otherwise the processor is always busy with some kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
So unless you stop it, say no, we change the thread to another sequence. So then
The processor is doing its thing. And you want to stop. No, I don't have time. The world is going to fall apart. So you need the mature adult. It's called the prefrontal cortex, the mayach, to be able to say, it's good. We got this under control. No, we don't got anything under control. The lion is coming. It's here. It's been here. It's always here, and you'll also be eaten up. I'm the one who's I'm the one who's responsible for your survival. And yeah, that's all part of it. Screaming. It's not easy. This is not easy stuff. This is deep avodah. Because when in the shir, it's funny. When it happens, it's not funny, my friends. In the shir, it's cute. We're talking about it. It's abstract. When it's actually happening, when you're home and tired and exhausted and that fight between your kids broke out, or that feeling with that friction between the spouses broke out, or that experience inside yourself, you say, hey, by the shir, it was so funny. Why is it not funny now? It's not funny because now it's real. Because now you got to do the avodah. Right? Like the story in Soviet Union, right? The teacher who asked the kids if they would give everything away to Mother Russia. And they said, of course. If you owned America, would you give it away? Of course. If you owned the moon, would you give it away to Stalin? Of course. If you owned Moscow, would you give it away? What's the question? I'll give everything away. What about your pair of jeans? Would you give it away? No. He says, why not? You ready to give away the moon? He says, because that I own. Moscow I can give away. What's the customer? In the shir I could talk about Purim, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Nefesh, Abahamas. Why not? Geschmack, a good joke, a good story. But now in the heat of the moment, now it's not a shir anymore. Now your amygdala is hollering survival, survival, survival. And it's not, the amygdala doesn't say, I'm the amygdala hollering survival. It's, I'm reality. Ein oid mulvadi. Outside of my anger, there's nothing else that exists. Why are you laughing? You think I have a video camera in your house? I don't have a video camera in your house. When people smile most of the shir, when you describe what they're going through. I see now everyone is smiling. A few minutes ago, it's been kemat geschlafen. Now suddenly everybody is smiling. You're the only one not smiling because you don't even know what I'm talking about because your Nefesh Abahamas has already been transformed 50 years ago. Huh? It's interesting. Everybody smiles when how does he know what's going on? So it's not Ruach HaKodesh, it's not Nevuah, Baruch Hashem. Ich habaycha Nefesh Abahamas. I don't need a video camera in your house. I have a video camera here. Inside of me, I have a video camera.
Scary thing is to get fired. Sometimes at some point, get fired, rejected, And they finally you do the code wrong. You say, well, because
but that's the good news. Underneath everything, there's Dvar Hashem. That's why we're not afraid. If we were afraid that if you go back to the code, you're really going to find real evil, then you're right. Avoidance makes a lot of sense. Huh? You're going to find that I'm really, really incompetent. Yeah, they say there was once a guy who came to a therapist, Dr. Goldberg, and he had a lot of anxiety and self-consciousness, and he was just miserable. And he came to him, and he was there, and he took his money. He was there for 2 hours. And he needed a diagnosis. So Dr. Goldberg tells him at the end, he says, the diagnosis is that you have a very, very low self-esteem. So he says, I know I have a low self-esteem, but why? Why? He says, it's not unusual for incompetent people. And that was the end of that. Now give me $400. You understand? It's not unusual for incompetent people to have a low self-esteem. Was willst du? What do you want from me? Right? It's called brilliant therapy. I diagnosed your problem. What we're going to find out is that at some point, we told ourselves we're incompetent. There was a message that was communicated we're incompetent. But if a person understands the Yesod HaYesodis, that's why therapy and psychology can be very, very helpful. But without Pnimiyus HaTorah, without Chassidus, there's always that piece missing. What's the piece that's missing? When you understand that you're a Chelek Elekami Mal Mamash. When you understand that every neshama came down with a shlichus. When you understand that Chayav Adam Layom B'Shvili Nivra Ha'olam, you're an indispensable note in the cosmic symphony. So to say, I'm essentially incompetent, is the worst form of kfira. It's basically saying God had a bad day when he created me. He was really, really anxious himself. And he made a really bad mistake. The question is, I have to reveal it. That's the vatokim as dvarecha. There's always a dvar Hashem underlying every existence. Can you lift it up? Can you raise it? Now it's been repressed. It's dormant. It's eclipsed. It's covered. That's why I'm saying I'm incompetent. There's a woman I know. Her name is Rabbi Garelik. She's a Chabad shluch in Milan, Italy, for since the 1950s. Rabbi Garelik. Her husband was Rabbi Gershom Mendel Garelik. He's a Rav in Milan. He passed away already, and the Bartanura Wines used to have his hechsher, but she's alive. So she once shared with my wife in the early years. She was sent to Milan. The Rebbe was then sending his first shluchim. It was very unpopular then. And here's an American girl, grew up in Chicago, Pittsburgh, being sent to Milan in the 1950s. Judaism then was very, very defense. Everybody was so broken from the Holocaust. The communities were tiny, and everybody was more in defense mode and just trying to hold on to what you had. The expansiveness of a Faratzta, Yom HaVakedma wasn't there. So she wrote a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, basically a long letter how inept she is for this job. And she's failing, and no one is interested, and it's not her place, and she really feels incapable, and this was a bad mistake, to uproot themselves and move all the way to Italy. So the Rebbe wrote her back a 3-page letter. So I saw it, and she showed it. She showed my wife, or she sent a copy, whatever, or it was published. I don't remember the whole letter. I remember one paragraph. He writes to her, I understand everything you're feeling in this, but I do want to make you realize that when you say about yourself, I'm incompetent, and I'm inept, and I'm not capable, and this was a horrible mistake, and I'm really the wrong person for the job, you're not just talking about yourself. You're also talking about the person who sent you. You're saying that the person who sent you really, really made a horrible, horrible mistake.
That's what she said.
He said that's... So what's the Vart? The Vart is in all of our lives, right? When I'm saying, if you're going to go to the code review, we're going to find out incompetence. Who wrote that code review? Who wrote the original code? Who wrote the original code? The Mishaleach Shluchah Shel Adam K'moisai is Hashem. Now, in her case, Rabbi Tzagarelik's case, the Rebbe was actually referring to the fact that he sent her. And he evaluated her, and he knows who she is. And she didn't feel that the Rebbe was that way. She felt it about himself. But he was trying to say, putting down yourself is not just putting down yourself. It's putting down also all the people who you don't want to put down, who believe in you. So in a cosmic sense, it's true about every single one of us. And that's why it's so important to have a person and people who believe in you, who embody the unwavering divine trust in every person. I would say, in fact, that's probably the most essential thing about what a Rebbe really is. Somebody who in the vicissitudes of life, even when I stop believing in myself, will refuse to stop believing in me, because that person is anchored in the true emunah that there's no such a thing. My journey may be a complex one, but it's a journey. And the journey is a divine journey. And because of that, we're not afraid. Vatokim es dvarecha, kitzadekat. That was the covenant he made with Avraham Avinu. And that's why it's so important. Atu Hashem levadecha. Before tzimtzum is levadecha. But then we go through a whole seder ishtalshalos, all the way down to Eretz. V'atam achayas kulam, all the way to Klippa. Why? Avraham is the one who ultimately will bring all the parts together. In other words, will reveal that all of ishtalshalos is just an embodiment of infinite consciousness. By working through Kanani, Chiti, Amari, Prizi, Yivus, Yigoshi, all the 7 midas. Because the Nefesh HaBahamis becomes an embodiment of the Nefesh HaLekis rather than a klipa, rather than an obstacle. And that's why the bitter is Vatokim as Dvarecha. You can lift up the word, including lift up the word in the Nefesh HaBahamis, which is governed by a word. That's the point. You ever understand? So when we're talking about Atu Hashem Levadecha, that section of davening, we're really going through like the microcosm of all of Hishtalshalus until it includes the human initiative and role in showing up to that experience. As he says, you have to have the seichel and nushi and bahami of the nefesh habahamis. I can only speak to my nefesh habahamis when it's in a position of listening, and it's very, very important. Like we said 2 shiurim ago, people often ask themselves, I've learned and learned and learned and learned. Why does nothing change? Nothing changes because I haven't learned the language of my body and my animal soul. And if I don't know their language, they're not going to listen. So I'm learning and learning and learning and learning. Even if my nefesh elikis is learning, and it is, and it's very, very inspired, and that's why there's certain moments you'll cry and you'll feel something, but the nefesh habahamis hasn't gotten the memo. The nefesh habahamis hasn't been at the shiur. He has been at the shiur, but he's busy surviving at the shiur. In order for the nefesh habahamis to sit at your shiur, not my shiur, your nefesh habahamis to sit at your shiur, my nefesh habahamis to sit at my shiur, we have to be able to speak to it, to address it. The only way I can address it is if I understand how it works. It's like speaking to a French student in English, right? It's like speaking to a 3-year-old like you speak to a 40-year-old. Go into a pre-1A class and teach them Talmud Yerushalmi, Zroyim. I mean, you need to speak my language. The Nefesh HaBahamis, you have to speak its language. If you tell the Nefesh HaBahamis, Ein Oid Mulvadai, the Nefesh HaLekis is in. Nefesh HaBahamis says, what do you mean, Ein Oid Mulvadai? Somebody got to survive. Somebody got to make a living. Somebody's being threatened. So I need to be able to talk to the Seichel of the Behemoth. Think about a little puppy, that's scared. Hasn't had food in 2 days, has no shelter, right? Come over to that puppy and say, Ein Oid Mulvada. The puppy needs a caress. The puppy needs water. The puppy needs a little food. Why do you think your puppy is different? You have different parts. A part of us is a little puppy, but you have a lot of different parts. And we need to bring all the parts to the table. You know what it's like? It's like, imagine there's a meeting, right? And there's people, and every few seconds somebody else talks. But like in good Jewish meetings, nobody waits till the other person finishes. Everyone is interrupting everybody. You know Jewish meetings? She screams, so he screams louder, so he screams even louder. So he says, none of you know what you're talking about. And this guy leaves and quits because I had enough with this meeting, right? That meeting is happening inside of us. You'll see. Right? The mistake we make is we think it's one person running the meeting. So we get so upset. It's not. There could be 100 characters inside, and they're all talking, and they talk b'shas ma'aseh, and they scream over each other because they want to be heard. You'll see it, right? You have a feeling. A second later, there's an attack. You're an idiot. And then there's like, you're such an idiot for thinking you're an idiot. I'll prove to you that you're an idiot. Okay, stop going there. We did it yesterday. And then there's the mental chatter. I made a mistake. I didn't make a mistake. I'm so stupid for thinking I made a mistake. No, you're not stupid. You're a good guy. I'm a horrible guy. I'm crazy. I'm normal. I'm almost normal. Why am I so self-conscious? I'm not really self-conscious. They're much worse than me. Everybody's self-conscious. No, you're the only crazy one in this whole show. Oh my God. And this is all in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei, right? The first bracha. You didn't even finish the first bracha yet. Like you didn't finish the first bracha. And the mazel is, right, the guy near you. the guy near you is, And it's much worse than I'm describing. You all know that. It's much worse. This is still funny. The biggest mistake we make is we think it's one part. It's not one part. It's a lot of different parts. And everyone is busy trying to survive. And we need to be able to acknowledge that. There's different parts. There's a whole system today in psychology. It's called IFS, Internal Family Systems. The guy Richard Schwartz. It's based on all this, right? We have, but it's a Yesod. Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, in Perek Chof Ches, that people make a mistake by davening. They think that their davening is worthless because they have machshava zadas. He says they were right. They would be right if you had one soul, but we have different souls. In other words, we don't have what's called a mana mind. We don't have one mind. We have many minds, many brains. The Nefesh HaBahamis itself has many different parts. So each part is saying something. You don't have to be afraid of it. It has information. You need a code review. Let's see what's going on by you. Now, right now, I may not be able to sit with every part and work with it, right? But I don't have to get upset. And I don't have to delegitimize myself. On the contrary, I have to be able to hear it, saying, okay, wow, this is a part of me that's still 2 years old. I know somebody who was molested very badly, very, very badly, when he was a little kid. So he didn't even have a memory of it, okay? So Ma'aseh Shahaya, he didn't have a memory of it. Later, now he knows much more. He still doesn't know everything, but he knows much more. And it wreaked havoc in his life. Havoc. It was so bad because he didn't have it. When you have a story, at least you have some dignity. This person was beaten. This person was emotionally beaten. This person had no safety. This person remembers what happened. Right? This person had emotional abuse. This person, there was no memories. There was nothing, there were no scars left. So who did he think is Meshuggah? He. Because there was nobody else. So not only was he murdered emotionally, but he blamed himself because he had no story to attach it to. So you understand the torture is double. Not only are you dealing with crazy pain, but there's no pain to deal with. That means you're the only nut job who is inventing all this pain in your own mind. Right? Why can't you get your stupid life together, idiot? And he's telling this to himself. It's crazy torture. Crazy because, Elie Wiesel used to say that his job is to be a witness to the Holocaust. I can't bring back. They said, why you always talk about it? He said, I can't bring back my parents. I can't bring back the 6 million. But all I can say is that the Nazis did it. In other words, there should be a witness. The Jews didn't just disappear. There should be a witness that the victims were murdered for their dignity, for the dignity of truth. The Nazis tried to conceal all the evidence. They burnt the crematoria. They wanted to get rid of the gas chambers. In Ukraine, they left no evidence.
Paperwork on that also.
Huh? They were for Germans. The Germans need paperwork for everything. Paperwork is as important as the murder. So he said, that evidence can't be concealed. It's called edus. You need witnesses. Witnesses are part of the thing. A child also needs witnesses. If a person gets hurt very badly, the fact that there's a witness and you're the witness, that itself is very important. What if there's no witness? What if you're not even a witness? So there's nothing. So all you have is, I'm crazy. I'm the Meshuggah, right? I'm doing this to myself. So this person was sharing with me. They did a lot of work. Really, really great neshama. Really great neshama. This person did tremendous amount of work. And when they do with this work, they're dealing with all of these stuff. So this person was sharing with me how sometimes, he's in a very good place. But suddenly there's a 3-year-old kid who's experiencing that abuse and who still lives inside of him. And that 3-year-old kid is told that he's worthless, he doesn't exist. He's not allowed to even have fear. You understand? He's not allowed to even have fear. Like, if you have fear, at least I'm afraid, like it's something. You're not even have fear. He was like frozen because even experiencing fear, he wasn't allowed to. That was too intense. So he shut down everything. It was like a frozen, a person becomes like a frozen piece of ice. But a piece of ice that's frozen is fine, it's healthy. He doesn't even have fear. And suddenly he feels that child talking. That child is experiencing all of its pain. So what happens then? That child is a 3-year-old who's frozen in time. Time has not passed. Is still experiencing life from that place. and will tell you everything it's feeling. When it starts feeling, it will give you the most horrible messages about yourself. Because that's what the 3-year-old heard. The 3-year-old heard, you don't exist. Your soul doesn't exist. Your body doesn't exist. You don't have emotions. Your whole metzius is nothingness, a shmata. Now this person may be 30, 40, 50, 60, and this is the experience. So it's a real part, but it's a part. It's a part. So the Nefesh HaBahamas developed this perception about itself. For whatever reason, that's what it needed to survive. And maybe its levels of self-consciousness and anxiety are crazy, also to protect it. Because if you're really worthless, and you're really a nobody, and you really don't have a right to exist, so make sure before you say something, you think 1,000 times. And make sure before you go into a chasana where everybody's going to be looking at you, right? Make sure you look good. And that's why you're standing at the door until you get out of the car from the parking lot. It could take 20 minutes. And you're checking your phone. Of course, you're watching clips. You're not watching clips. You're just trying to avoid the wedding. Whatever it is, there's a billion formations of it. So now I could scream at this part and say, come on, you grow up. It's a stupid, come on. What did I just do to that kid? I just said, okay, now you can't trust the adult either. So there's another bulletproof vest. So I have to listen to that part. I must listen to it. I don't have to be afraid of it. I have to listen to it and embrace it and hug it. But I could only talk to that through the seichel of the Nefesh HaBahamas. Seichel Nefesh HaBahamas means I have to be able to calm it down. And I have to say, there's an adult in the house. There's a prefrontal in the house. And provide it with that sense of safety. And then the Nefesh HaLekis could start a conversation. Very slowly, but they could start a conversation. So it's a very, very delicate process. You understand the Indian? You have to first, v'atakem es dvarecha. Also means you have to raise it up. You have to give that 2-year-old a little safety. And he's going to have to cry. A kid has safety through crying. He has to process. He has to grieve. He has to have a witness. It's a very, very intense process. It's a very emotional process. A very emotional process. The bitter of the Nefesh HaBahamas is the most emotional process because I have to be able to process all the pain that it went through in order to be able to let it go and bring it up. And with tremendous compassion. Did I answer your question? So you're not the puppy. But yeah, there's an Nefesh HaBahamas inside of me, and it's a big part. And I may not be aware of any other part, but that's where we begin to expand our horizons. So that's the vatokem as dvarecha ki tzadikata. The tzaddik is not afraid to raise the Dvar Hashem. Not to denigrate it, but to raise it, to lift it up. I think I once told you, there's a vart I once heard from the Rebbe. It says in Pirkei Avos, Kala oimer davar b'shem oimre mevi geula la'olam. Right, if you say something in the name of the one who said it, it brings geula to the world. Shenemar v'taimer Esther lamelech b'shem Mordechai. Esther quoted Mordechai, and that brought geula. So there's also a deeper spiritual interpretation. Everything in the world is being created by Hashem's words. Like we say in the morning, Baruch Sha'amar v'haya ha'olam. The word davar in Hebrew means a thing. Davar. The word davar in Hebrew also means a word, dibur. It's the only language that I know where a thing and a word is the same word. Davar, dibur, ledaber, vayidaber, davar. Why? Because a thing is really a word. A thing is not a thing, it's a word. It's a program. It's energy. And that the dibur makes the davar. Bidvar Hashem shamayim nasu. Ba'asara Maamar is nivra ha'olam. Vayomer elikim yer. La'olam Hashem dvarcha nitzav b'shamayim. But when I look at the thing, when I look at a davar, what do I see? I see a tissue box. I see a remote control. I see a mic. I see a tissue, whatever I see. I have a cup of coffee. I see coffee. If I'm a little more sophisticated, I see coffee, think about the coffee beans, then I think about the coffee plant, and then once I'm thinking about the coffee plant, I think about deeper and deeper. It says, if you can see, if you could say everything, you can identify in every davar, Shem Oimroi, the one who said it, meaning the divine energy, Baruch Shama V'Haya Olam, Mevi Geula La'Olam, you redeem the world from Olam Miloshen Helam. The world is concealment. You reveal your Geula, you emancipate the world from Olam. You bring a Geula to the Helam, to the concealment of the world, because you identify your Oimer Davar, everything you touch, your Oimer, B'Shem Oimer, you say it in the name of Oimrei. You identify Shem Oimrei, you redeem the world. That's Vatakim as Dvarecha. In every inyan, don't look at the shame, look for the shame. There's a shame Oimrei there. It's very easy to forget shame Oimrei. I plagiarize it. What does it mean plagiarize it? I take your information and I do with it what I want. I use it for my book. That's what we do with the world. We take divine information and we make believe, less din, less dayan. It's really divine, this piece of chocolate, this coffee bean, this money, this body, this soul, this brain, this identity, even this emotion. I don't want to plagiarize. See the Shem Oimrei in it. And then maybe you redeem the world. You give proper credit. Yeah. It was one Pirkei Avos. The Rebbe was talking about Pirkei Avos, Perek Vav. So he said this word. He explained the Mishnah, he said this word. I'm saying it b'Shem Oimrei. Shem Oimrei is the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Haflu de Kavart. Kala Oimer, it's an approach in life. It's everything. Not just repeat, give credit where credit is due. Obviously, that's true. That's the word. When I say over something not in the name of the one who said it, what am I really doing? I'm stealing. I'm detaching. I'm taking credit for that which really I'm a channel. Right? So we all understand in human beings it's inappropriate. You write a book, you worked hard for it, and then I steal, 20 pages, I put it in my book without permission.
You needed extra code.
So what did I really do? I'm really trying to build my ego off of somebody else. So the chisaron here is twofold. First of all, I'm taking from somebody else. And second of all, I'm trying to build up something that needs healing. That's what it needs. If I feel that I'm going to be built up by taking your information, it means that the eye is a very wounded eye. Like if I'm teaching, and I feel I can't say over who I heard it from because I need you to hear that I'm the one who said it. So woe unto the class. Woe unto the teacher and to the class. You understand? That means that the whole identity of the communicator is so frail, is so not in touch with the source, to the point that if I'm saying from something else, I can't even say his name. I don't know if you know, the Alter Rebbe wrote Tanya over 20 years intermittently. And he published it without the name of the author. So imagine you work on something for 20 years and then you publish it without your name. And the reason is since he knew there was opposition to Chassidus and to him, so he didn't want anybody should judge the quality of the book based on the name. Oh, it's him. We're not allowed to, we're students of the Gaon of Vilna. We can't read it. In other words, judge it based on the quality of the book. He didn't want the name should have any influence. So you work on something for 20 years, it's without a name. But that's why it's the Tanya. Because it's Omer Davar B'Shem Oimrei. So in everything in life, I can detach it from its source. And when I detach it from its source, I'm detaching myself from my source. So I'm feeding something that doesn't even need to be fed because it doesn't have real existence. But I may be stuck in that place. So that's what my animal soul is doing. It's trying to survive as a separate being. I'm not going to heal it by telling it you're a Ganav, you're a Gazlin, you're a Shaita. Then it goes more into the Klippa. Vatakim es Dvarecha. I have to raise it up. I have to raise up the Dvar Hashem. I have to find the Dover B'Shem Oimrei. I have to listen and see what it is. And then Mevi Gula L'Olam, then you redeem it. The Chevra Zayin Teufels Dominion. You'll see it works much better this way. Much better. I know we're not always used to it, but we have to evolve, not repeat. Evolve, not repeat. Repeat is easy. Maybe not so easy, but we think it's easy. Repeat is not easy, but repeat we're comfortable with. It's going back to Mitzrayim. We know what it looks like. Familiar evil is better than unfamiliar evil. Evolve, we need to surprise ourselves. To surprise myself is a different avodah. Okay, Be'ezer Hashem, tomorrow morning we'll have a shir. Tomorrow morning we'll have a shir. I want to already finish this mimer. It's a long mimer. So tomorrow morning we'll be on Be'ezer Hashem 7:45 a.m. Bli Neder. Everybody is invited. And have a beautiful and wonderful and successful day. Yod Avram, go ahead.
So in the computer world, there is like, we getting closer to the emes of everything. So there is a process called Know Your Client. So Know Your Client is a process where you provide information that, let's say, third party can be verified by third party, and the information you can use for attestations without revealing your real identity. So basically it works like a proof. So I'm thinking you need to invent something which is called, I called it during this year, Know Yourself. KY, not KYC, KYS. Know Yourself. How do you know yourself? Like in a computer, we know there is a program called Activity Monitor, right? In Mac, or there is Activity Monitor. What is it? It shows you which programs are running now, right? Programs running on its own thread, and they're running now. So now imagine you have a thread which is basically Nefesh Behemoth, and the thread which is Nefesh Elokis, and you know that Nefesh Behemoth takes 99% of the whole computer. It occupies the entire hardware, which is basically talking only this, and you see that Nefesh Elokis maybe gets a minute during the shir, So knowing yourself, meaning you can have another thread, which is a moderator, which tells you, "Oh, I'm stopping now." What do you mean I'm stopping now? I stopped giving you so much time of my processor, which is
allocate the resources.
Yeah, so I'm stopping giving you 99% of the processor, which is now you occupying it entirely. I'm stopping you at the thread. So and now I'm delegating the time to the next.
Very nice.
So
Your wife is that
or
other thread.
right, so you have threads for wife and families and children and stuff.
Very nice.
So maybe that's the way to start, thinking. So pausing mean, just
Silence. Breathe.
just the stopping this.
The word processor. Stopping the word processor.
Breathing means okay, now let's just basically breathing means we have time now to give you a chance to respond from the other side. So run this thread now, and then you see what happens. Now you're in dialogue.
Yeah. When we pause and breathe, there can be another message and we can begin dialogue. At least it should be a dialogue.
Right. At least you give, and gradually you give more time to the Nefesh Elokis.
Beautiful. You give more time to the Nefesh Elokis. Because if not, the Nefesh Elokis just doesn't stop. And we don't even realize it. The whole processor is occupied by it and it's running 24/7.
24/7, 99% of our whole resource of execution is taken by somebody else.
Very good.
That's the dialogue.
Beautiful. Very well said.
Just
yeah,
it's a good.
You're saying you gotta pause and then go to another thread.
Just give a control to another thread. Now you have time.
Very nice. Control to another thread in yourself. Very nice. Beautiful. Huh?
Basically, you divide the resource equally, more democratically, per se, right? So, which is the sense.
Yeah. Dividing the resources democratically is the key, but the first resource is not going to give up so easily.
No.
That's why we need an adult in the room to say you're safe. I have this under control.
So that moderation.
And I'm not trying to destroy you. I get it.
You have an existence. You have a purpose, but there is other things need to be executed.
And we slowly unburden it from its pressure. It has so much pressure. because it's really feeling responsible for everything. So we unburden it. So you don't have to run the whole universe. You could just be you.
It's okay if you...
You're responsible for good things. You don't have to take over the whole system. You don't have to figure it all out. It's an unnecessary burden on the Nefesh HaBahamis to figure everything out. You don't have to.
and by the way, this way you can slowly know who is talking. If you're under control,
Very nice.
really, you know who's...
Say Hashem, beautifully said. Yeah. Mevi Geula la'olam. Bringt a Geula to the Olam Miloshen Helen. Olam is Miloshen Helen. Leist ois, the Welt. Geula, you're Goyim, you redeem the world from Helen Vehester. Shishkan Helen Vehester. He once touched Ben Meya. It says Ben Meya kilu meis over a bottle min olam. So he says, what's the Mishnah trying to say? If you're 100, you're over bottleneck. What's that Mishnah saying? If you made it to 100, you're over bottle. You're like a dead man. He says Ben Meya, you work through the 10 koiches of the Nefesh HaBahamis, and each one of the 10 has all the 10. So now you're Ben Meya. Skilu meis over a bottle min olam. So bottle geworden the Helen vehester from Welt. Yeah. So bottle geworden ka'avar or bottle min ha'olam. It's completely bottled for the Helen vehester from Welt. That's what the Mishnah says. Comes and he says a matzav in avoda. The Rebbe says a matzav in avoda as a sheneshtak in Helen vehester. Obviously, we're saying that there's Jews before Ben Meya. There's a matzav in avoda over a bottle min ha'olam. The sheneshtak in Helen vehester. You have to know there's such a madreg in avoda. You're done with Helen vehester. Daloi galus. Ke'ilu meis, just like after Missa. There's no Helen vehester, the neshama, there's no Helen. It's all, the game is over. So Ben Meya kilu meis, what's that kilu meis? V'avar o batel min ha'olam. The ganze bittel, the bittel of all Helen. Stuck in Helen. Steifus. So what's it trying to say? You over bottle? We call over bottle. Over bottle means senile. That's what the Mishnah is trying to say. Well, you're like a dead man, you don't have to talk to him. You know, they say, how do you know you're old? People are talking about you in front of you and they don't even care, right? But the pnimi, over a bottle min ha'olam is... They say there was once a guy, he couldn't hear. Once went to the doctor tells him, and right, it's good news, they have a new hearing aid. It's going to solve the problem. And he goes and he installs it. 25 years he couldn't hear. It's gewaldig. He says, come back in a week, tell me how it's going, you know. So he goes home, comes back in a week, the doctor says, no, he says, amazing, I hear everything. He says, your family must be excited. Like for the first time, he said, I didn't tell anybody. And I already changed my will 9 times. Changed my tzavon 9 times. Over a bottle, you talk in front of him, you say what you want.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.